Alright, it's time to start the meeting. Please invite the administration in. Do members need to declare any interest? I hold a driving license, and I've got previous driving offense records. I was asked to undergo a breath test. Kenneth, Chairman, I've got traffic offense record, and I'm a member of the IPCC. And Chairman, I drive as well. And yes, I'm also a member of the IPCC, and I hold a driving license, and I have been caught for speeding. Yes, I would like to welcome Anthony and his team. We've got a quorum already, so I think we can start. I understand that Anthony would like to give some introductory remarks. How long will that take? Just a few minutes, Chairman. Yes, I think you can start. Yes, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank the Audit Commission for having carried out the value for money study on the administration of road safety measures by our Bureau, the Transport Department, the Police, and the ISD. And I would like to thank PAC members for giving us this opportunity to further explain to you our work. And I think before we take questions, I would like to give some responses to the recommendations in the report. Part 2 of the report deals with measures to combat drink driving. The police will review the random breath test operations and will formulate a set of guidelines, and will ask the various traffic formations to decide on their priorities and the allocation of resources. And there will be different strategies with regard to the administering of such tests, and the slots and the locations, and so on and so forth will be reviewed. And concerning the simplified breath test procedures, the police will continue to study the relevant technology in order to increase the effectiveness of the test, and the UST in fact has been commissioned to carry out tests concerning the mobile devices, and it is expected that the study will be completed within the 4th quarter, and if the results are satisfactory, then such mobile devices will be used in our operations. The police have been monitoring the time gap between the first breath test and the evidential breath test, and the target is to shorten the time gap. And then concerning the third part of the report, speeding and red light jumping, the Transport Department in 2012 hired a consultant to carry out a preliminary design with regard to a trial scheme for the average speed camera system for the Shenzhen Bay Highway Bridge. And we will be applying for funding from the FC in 2013 for the launching of the trial scheme in the 2013-2014 financial year. And concerning the present enforcement camera system, the Transport Department will continue to make reference to overseas experience and study new technology and try to improve upon the system. And when we expand the system or replace the present cameras, we'll continue to bear in mind the need to take into account the latest technological developments. The 4th part of the report relates to the safe operation of the different types of vehicles. We agree with the Director of Audit with regard to the recommendations on the retrofitting of safety belts for minibuses. We'll continue to try to upgrade the safety measures for public light buses, and we will continue to work with the EPD to encourage diesel-driven public buses to be replaced. And we would try to encourage the operators and the owners to retrofit public light buses with safety belts. And concerning health checks for taxi drivers and bus drivers, we are now having discussions with the franchise bus companies on the arrangements. We hope to step up such arrangements, and we are now reviewing the arrangement whereby we require health check certificates by registered doctors for those who are applying for or replacing their driving licenses, and we are reviewing the age limit in this regard. And without affecting the privacy of those concerned, we are also looking at the possibility of implementing measures to have access to the health records of drivers who are in poor health. In other words, whether we can have access to such records without having their consent. And we also accept the recommendation concerning the accuracy of traffic accident data. We will try to minimize the errors concerning the input of data. And then concerning publicity and education, we will step up the review of APIs and other works produced by contractors so as to identify at an early stage whether there are copyright problems, and we will also look at the possibility of a performance-based payment method so as to encourage the producers to comply with copyright regulations. We also agree with the Director of Audit that when we produce APIs, we should try to search on the internet road safety APIs in other places to try to ascertain that there are no breaches of copyright. But of course, this can only be for our reference, and we will also be asking contractors about their ideas to ascertain that these are their own creations and do not infringe copyright. So we'll also look at performance-based payment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Secretary, for the this concise response to the comments and recommendations in the Director of Audit's report. And the member in charge of this chapter is Kenneth Leung, but of course other members will also ask follow-up questions. So Kenneth, you have 15 minutes, and the other members will have 10 minutes each, but of course I'll be flexible in this regard. So Chairman, I think you can lead us in the discussion of Chapter 2. Yes, Chairman. I think I would like to first of all ask about the principles. I would like to deal with part 1, so I may not need 15 minutes for this round. All right, so who would like to ask questions after Kenneth Leung? Paul Chair, all right. Kenneth, please. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would like to ask a question about road safety in general. May I refer to part 1 of the Director of Audit's report? May I refer to figure 2 and figure 3? So, Figure 1 shows the traffic accident and casualty trends, and then Figure 2, accident involvement rates per 1,000 vehicles. Now, according to the report, and I'm referring to Para 1.2, in fact, it is said that Hong Kong's traffic fatality rate has declined in recent years and is one of the lowest in the world. How low, can I ask? How do we compare with similar cities in the other parts of the world? That's the first question. And then concerning Figure 2 and Figure 3, we see an obvious trend, and that is for franchised buses, their accident involvement rate is high. And following franchised buses, we have PLBs, public light buses. So I would like to know more about the driving habits of drivers in Hong Kong. How do we compare with other places in the world? Is it that in other cities in the world, the accident involvement rate of public vehicles like buses are higher than the accident involvement rates for other types of vehicles. Yes, I will say a few words and then the Commissioner for Transport can supplement. I think when we select cities for comparison, we have to take into account the road traffic conditions and the level of congestion in those cities. And in fact, we've got figures concerning other cities in the world. The Commissioner can supplement here. Yes, Chairman, 2012 for every 1 million people, the number of deaths in traffic accidents was 17. This is on the low side. Singapore, 2011. We don't have figures for 2012 for Singapore. For Singapore, 2011, 38 deaths per 1 million people. London, 19. Taipei, 38. And Tokyo is better than Hong Kong, 2012, 14 per 1 million. I think these are cities that can be compared to Hong Kong. Kenneth? Yes. The second question, Chairman, relates to the driving habits of Hong Kong drivers. Now we can see that our franchise buses, PLBs and taxis have higher accident involvement rates than private vehicles. And do we see a similar situation in other cities in the world? Is it that the accident patterns in these cities are similar to the pattern in Hong Kong? Commissioner, I don't have such figures. Perhaps I can provide such figures to members after the meeting. Yes, thank you. I think the Director of Audit can assist here, and that is, in 2011, the Road Traffic Ordinance CAP 374 was amended, and apart from drink driving, drug driving was also included as an offense. Why is it that this report hasn't provided too much information on the enforcement action with regard to drug driving and the relevant figures? Yes, Chairman. Now, in the study, we did study and analyze drink driving and drug driving. And so you can see in Note 2 that, in fact, for drug driving, the accident rate was not too high. And then in Note 6, we've also tried to explain to members what we've done with regard to drug driving. Right, Kenneth? Can you see these notes? Yes. And Chairman, I think I've already covered the general issues, and I think I can let other members ask their questions first. Should we now proceed to part 2? Paul and then Alan. Paul. Chairman, I want to talk about drink driving, which is a matter of concern to members. Which paragraph are you referring to? 2.15. Chairman, can we deal with the last part first? But I understand that Paul has to be an officiating guest for a function, and so he has to leave at 11 a.m. I think Kenneth has a point in wanting to deal with the last part first. I still have time. I can stay on. No, but perhaps Kenneth can discuss this matter with Paul, but I've got a question concerning part 1, Chairman. Transport Department and the police share a common duty, and that is to educate the public on road safety. I want to know the division of labor between the police and the transport department on educating the public on road safety. If such efforts are not satisfactory, then who should be held responsible? Secretary, who can answer this question? I think the heads of the two departments can provide replies. Now, of course, the police play a very important role with regard to taking enforcement action to ensure road safety. And the transport department keeps figures and data and analyze the trends. So both departments join hands to educate the public on road safety. So I don't think it's difficult to have a clear-cut responsibilities in this regard for the transport department and the police. All right, Commissioner for Transport and then Commissioner for Police. Yes, Chairman, thank you. We and the police liaise very closely at the working level. And in the Road Safety Council or in other similar advisory bodies, both departments have representatives sitting on these bodies. And we know very well what the other party is doing. The Transport Department targets certain issues every year. For example, recently we have been doing more in respect of cycling safety, and the police do analyze the causes of traffic accidents and where public education and publicity should be stepped up. And then we liaise very closely with the transport sector, and so we mount publicity campaigns for the transport sector. For example, we encourage professional drivers to undergo health checks and to pay attention to their health conditions. Now, because we do have very close contacts with the transport sector, we do mount publicity campaigns targeting the transport sector. Yes, Commissioner for Police. Yes, Chairman. Concerning territory-wide road safety campaigns, we support the initiatives proposed by the Road Safety Council. Now, in fact, the Road Safety Council comprises government representatives, local celebrities, and representatives of the public. The Road Safety Council operates like the Central Fight Crime Committee. Once it has identified certain themes for publicity, and the other departments will support such initiatives. And as the Commissioner has pointed out, the police are responsible for educating the public at large on road safety. In fact, in each police district, there is a traffic formation. Now, for example, we have road safety buses educating young people on the importance of observing road safety. And then we have the road safety city. And then we also visit centers for the elderly to educate elderly persons on the need to observe road safety measures. And the transport department mainly targets the transport sector in terms of publicity and education. Mr. Ng Seng, I want to ask a question about 1.4. It is said that the police's estimated expenditure on its road safety program was $1,405 million. And then the transport department's expenditure on road safety could not be readily ascertained as such work formed parts of 3 wider program areas. And so concerning the transport department, will you group the relevant parts under the 3 program areas into one single topic? Thank you.
Yes, I can take a look to see if that can be done. There is some difficulty, for example, in IT, display signage for drivers. For example, there's heavy rain and you need to be careful. We do have some displays to warn drivers. They do contribute to road safety, and in traffic management, when drivers are careful, they can avoid congestion. So as to how the money is spent, well, it's rather difficult to assess. but perhaps we can conduct some analysis in our future budgets. Okay, I accept that. Chairman, regarding part 1, I'd like to see if there are any other questions. Chairman, I'd like to lead the discussion to part 6 because some of our colleagues might leave early, and we might have some experts in education. So in part 6, I'll allow them to flip to part 6. Kenneth would like to lead the discussion in part 6 on publicity and education. We're on the same page? Well, I have a question about the 2 cases. The Government Information Service will have announcement of public interest contracts for outside production houses. Now, these 2 cases have some problems arising. In case 1, on drug driving, API, it has been discovered that there might have been infringement of copyright of a UK anti-drug driving video. In case 2, there was an API for promoting cyclist safety on public roads. There's been a complaint that the bicycle used in the video doesn't comply with safety standards. Well, I would like to know when the government outsources contracts, APIs to production houses, what quality control measures do you have, and which department is responsible for approving these APIs? I'd like to know what quality control exercises do you maintain? Yes, GIS. Thank you, Mr. Leung. Put simply, regarding this case, the case 1, there was a complaint that whether this video was similar to a UK video. After follow-up, the first point is it hasn't been confirmed that there was infringement. After consulting DOJ, we would not pursue legal action against the production house. For example, over the last 10 years, we have made more than 1,000 videos. This is the only case. So our contractors in Hong Kong, they are quite creative. After this incident, what have we done? First of all, in the pre-production, these are usually won by tender. So in our discussion, we had to confirm it was an original concept. In fact, the GIS, when they negotiated with the contractor, there were many opportunities to discover whether it was an original idea. The department would have a lot of input in the production process, and we receive the original idea, the storyboard, and we will conduct internet searches. There are a lot of sources on the internet where we can find these videos. Well, of course, it cannot be exhaustive. So after the incident, we have made more than 200 videos, and we haven't found any similar problem. Well, from a value for money perspective, we've spent hundreds of thousands in a couple of months on these videos. Well, it's not ideal. I think the consideration was if you continue to air this video, even though it's not confirmed that there was an infringement, but the negative impact might be larger. So, in fact, with the Traffic Safety Committee, we had made 2 new videos on drunk driving and drunk driving. Of course, the situation was not ideal, but I think it was an appropriate handling of a less than ideal situation. Well, after identifying these problems, have you made any improvements in your procurement policies? For example, when you negotiate with production houses, have you fine-tuned your procurement policy? How do you choose the tenderers? How do you shortlist candidates? How many production houses will you interview? Well, these service procurements are in line with other government procurement procedures. We will allow different contractors to tender. We look at quality and price. Let's say I've shortlisted a candidate. So we need to identify whether there has been copyright infringement. So as I said just now, in the discussion, in the dialogue, you can see whether it's an original idea. And the government will also provide a lot of input. So we have our own stance in the video content, and I also mentioned the internet search. We do try to do a thorough job. So I would like to respond to the Audit Commission that this internet search cannot be exhaustive. Case 2 has not been answered. Case 2 was a legal question. They used a bicycle that was not up to safety standards. So quality control, this should be followed up by the Government Information Services and Traffic Transport Department. Well, in case 2, we had complied with procedure. Let's say we endorsed the contractor's storyboard idea. We will follow the procedure. We will work with police, transport department, and GIS. But very unfortunately, we didn't catch this substandard bicycle. There were a couple of seconds where the bicycle was filmed and it did not comply. So I think some audience members were very careful, and they spotted this substandard bicycle. So in the process, we will now inspect the props used in videos very carefully. So when we shoot these videos, we will require an expert on the set. We hope to avoid these incidents. So after that incident, we haven't had a similar incident. Kenneth? Well, I don't have any follow-up, but I hope other members can follow up. Yes, I watched all 3 videos, so I would like to follow up a bit. If you refer to page 66, 67 in the Chinese version, case 1, case 2. In case 1, 400,000 was spent, and it was a copyright infringement. I had watched the original UK film where they had a close-up shot of a female's eyes, and we saw there were some incidents of drunk driving, drug driving. In Hong Kong, it's the same. Instead of a Caucasian eye, they shot a Oriental eye. So contract-wise, could the Transport Department respond? That is there any requirement that they cannot infringe on copyright? If there is copyright infringement, the government might take legal action. It could be either financial redress or legal action. If not, why can't you specify in the contracts that the production house might be subject to legal action or financial redress? Now, just now we heard that they consulted the DOJ, and they might not have sufficient evidence and they wouldn't prosecute. So, have you put this contractor in the blacklist, that is, in the future, when they submit tenders, they would have a record of copyright infringement? So could Transport Department, or, well, you can respond to his question. Did they infringe on copyright? Well, there is a requirement in the contract. They cannot infringe on copyright. I need to clarify this point. In the whole process, we had not confirmed they infringed copyright. Of course, when people watch the videos, they might come to different conclusions. We had consulted DOJ, the IP, Intellectual Property Commission. There are similarities in the two videos, but if you watch the videos, there are differences as well. We have to be fair to the contractor as well. After 2012, if you want to be on the list of contractors, you need to indicate your interests. This contractor has not wished to be a government supplier, so he's not on the list of suppliers. Is it because of DOJ opinion that you didn't seek the refund of $400,000? Yes, we had consulted DOJ where it was not appropriate to have further legal action. Well, he also said that he'll do some internet search of videos. So for all government APIs, will you undertake the same measures, such that there is no similarity with overseas videos? Yes. Thank you, Chairman. In case 2, it was quite a good API, but there were some technical flaws because they didn't have a bell and a reflector on the bicycle. So before and after shooting videos, we do have TD and police experts on the scene to approve the use of the props. As in paragraph 3 of the case 2, after consulting the TD and the police, the ISD advised the contractor that the proposed bicycle and vehicles were acceptable. So the staff on the set, do they have professional qualifications on road traffic safety, or did you just find whoever was off duty and available and had them on the set? So were they professionals with the relevant professional knowledge? So was there any negligence in approving the use of the bicycle in the video? Yes, the police and TD can respond. In shooting case 2 video, during shooting, government staff were not on hand, and it was not ideal. And I admit that colleagues could have done a better job. Of course, we do review the raw footage, and if you were careful, you would spot the deficiencies. As the GIS colleague mentioned, when shooting these videos, we will have the relevant professionals on hand to ensure that everything is in compliance. Police? Yes, there was some negligence here, but the police stance is that all videos shot with police funding. We have public relations department looking into it, but this was not funded by police, so we admit that there were some deficiencies. But in the future, as long as we participate, we will have our staff look into it. In paragraph 4 of case 2, after the video was shot, it was shown to the police and TD, and they didn't catch this error. So the person reviewing the video was the same person who was on the scene when it was shot. So if it was the case, then it was negligence. So in the future, should we have 2 groups of people viewing these videos? It's the same group of staff, not necessarily the same person. They should be familiar with the legal requirements of bicycles. As I said, we could have done a better job. It was only a few seconds, but we should learn from this lesson. Even with very brief camera shots, we can have slow motion replay, so we should be very careful in the use of props. I think the Transport Department had made a good comment that we should have professional experts on the shooting set, and I suggest that similar arrangements be made in the future. We shouldn't waste public money because of small technical errors. Paul? I'd like to follow up on case 1. The API, how long was it supposed to be aired? GIS? There isn't any fixed requirement. The Road Traffic Advisory, Road Traffic Council, they will renew videos every year. So usually it will be aired for a year, but it's not a fixed schedule. For some successful APIs, they might run for quite a long time. So different products have different life cycles, but usually they are renewed every year. Looking at the case 1, in 2011 November, there was a 3-stage penalty for drunk driving. And looking at this API, you had wanted the API to tie in with the 3-stage penalty. Transport Department.
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary. Well, under the circumstances, losses would not be just limited to the $400,000 of production costs. But because you've taken out the API, you might have the promotion policy might have been adversely affected. Would I be correct in saying this? Secretary, there should have been some impact. Have you subsequently short other APIs and as a result spent additional amounts? But perhaps I'll ask the GIS to answer the question regarding the API. Well, subsequently there were 2 other APIs, one on drunk driving, which was produced for the Road Safety Council, and it was broadcast on since March 15 of 2012. I'd like to ask about the copyright owner in the UK, and they're asking for a licensing fee. How much did that amount to? According to my recollection, it was about 5,000 odd pounds sterling. So it's a one-off, payment, or would it be a periodic payments? Well, I'll need to confirm that and provide you with the information afterwards. Please check whether or not you would rather pay for the promotion expenses rather than sacrificing, the opportunity for promotion. Mr. Wong. Of course, that is obviously a choice. We felt well, we have considered the question at the time. Given that the API has such problems, a lot of negative impact already been created. Should we pay an additional tens of thousands of dollars to continue to broadcast the API? We felt that it was not satisfactory. Therefore, we decided to withdraw the API and wait for a new one to be produced. Of course, I respect your decision at the time. But when we conduct value for money audit, whenever the government, receives such claims of infringement, there is always the opportunity for conciliation so that you can reduce the losses. You said that you're worried about the negative, publicity, but you have, formally obtained the copyright, then you would have resolved the problem. Director. Well, I respect members' views on this. Well, Chairman, I have not had the opportunity to look at the two videos and make the comparison. Having heard the discussion so far, apparently the problem is focused on the eyes. That is, instead of the eyes of a Caucasian, the API uses the eyes of a Chinese. Well, I've actually been a counsel dealing with copyright issues, but I don't think there's any copyright protection for concepts. It's the actual production itself and how the concept is being reproduced in reality that is protected. I'm sure you've consulted the intellectual property department. After you've sought additional information from the production house, you've not followed up on this any further. Can you confirm whether or not there has been any copyright infringement? Well, regarding the legal considerations, I can't be too detailed here. What I can say is that at the time, the intellectual property department suggested that we should seek the advice of some experts in Hong Kong. We actually consulted Cash. I don't remember how Cash is called in Chinese. I think in Hong Kong we have lots of experience on copyright protection, but even Cash told us that they didn't have any expert witness they could provide to help us. So we made an effort at the time. And finally, as I answered Mr. Tam's question, at least the government did not confirm that there was any violation of the copyright. So there were similarities and differences. As far as the eye was concerned, on the internet, we saw that there was not just the single API, and the UK API was not the only one using the eye as the focus to depict certain things. So it has never been an easy task. So having considered this, we decided to withdraw the API. Mr. Wong, I hope you understand that we asked this question not because we're interested in how you shoot the API. We want to ensure that there is value of money and that public funds are spent properly, and that is why we asked those questions. Perhaps you can show us the correspondence, the relevant correspondence, so that we can understand better. Without jeopardizing your operations, would it be possible for you to give us the relevant correspondence so that we can deal with it? We'll be happy to do that, Chairman. Okay. Paul, thank you, Chairman, for that suggestion. Actually, I was going to ask the same question. Regarding the report on this case, David, have you look at the correspondence regarding the first case? Yes, we have. Could you help answer Paul's question and confirm whether they have conducted such a study? They have looked into this and they've read the relevant documents. We look at the relevant documents and contracts. Well, in that case, we can better understand the picture. We'll go over the documents. According to page 66 of the audit report, it says, could you tell us the paragraph number? This is under paragraph 6.5, case 1. We're told here that the GIS had attempted to obtain more information regarding the production of the API from the contractor, but the letter was not too cooperative. But I'm sure the questions asked will enlighten us on what actually transpired. If you look at case 1 and paragraph 4, we learned that by March, it was only in March 2012 that the ISD obtained an offer from the UK copyright owner to grant a license. So it was delayed until March 2012. So the API only have a life cycle of a year. Why did it take so long? Did we give up our rights too early and too easily? Director, Chairman, I don't have anything further to supplement. As I said earlier, I think there have been several rounds of communication, and they said, and according to the contractor, it was an original creation and that they had not infringed any copyrights. And we've also not been able to confirm that they had violated any copyrights. Another development was that the new API was already broadcast in March 2012, so we've already done our best. Well, the concept of copyright means that the simpler the concept, the more difficult it is for people to claim ownership. And if there are more similar production, it would be more difficult to claim copyright and ownership. According to the director, there are many similar methods of depicting the picture, and the authorities don't have sufficient grounds or legal advice to determine whether or not the API was an infringement. On the one hand, we cannot confirm whether or not there had been any infringement, and then for other reasons we cannot hold the contractor responsible. Isn't the administration caught in the middle and put into a rather helpless position, and that you gave up your rights too early and too easily? Actually, we've done our best, but in reality we did encounter such difficulties. So perhaps I'll pause here, and we will further follow up after we've been given the relevant evidence. Mr. Leung Sing. Thank you. I'd like to also focus on case 1 and follow up on the questions raised by other members. For example, after you've asked for further information to determine whether or not there have been any infringement of copyrights, if that did not turn out to be successful, and if we should take evidence, should we ask whether or not there have been any correspondence or records taken regarding the actions taken to convince us that they've already made the best endeavor and still fail to obtain information from the contractor? And in paragraph 5, we understand that you decided not to take legal action against the contractor without proper justification. I'm sure your advisor and lawyer would not ask you to cease the action that you would otherwise take. So, of course, if you say the contractor, you say you've already answered all the questions, but we can't force you, but we hope you can give us the information. Well, in the end, you have not given any license fee to the UK party amounted to £5,000 odd. So will you be claimed for such an amount going forward? Is this responsibility for payment a continuous responsibility? And also in future, when such APIs are broadcast, I think an earlier question was asked about the life cycle of the APIs. If it's going to be 1 year from the time the APIs starts to be broadcast until it's withdrawn, for any publicity you would like to study the effectiveness, or so would you have any? Would you take any follow-up action regarding these APIs? Perhaps I think it should be for the TD to answer the last question. Regarding the 5,000 odd pound, we've not made that payment. And so far, we have not received any information suggesting that the copyright owner in the UK will take any follow-up action. Whether but how long that liability or responsibility will last in terms of time, we can't say at this moment. But regarding the follow-up on the effectiveness of the API, does the TD have, after the GIS has broadcast the API for some time, will there be any evaluation? Director or Secretary? Before the Director responds, I also, and having heard members' questions, I'd like to make a supplement here. I think this is really a very rare case. After the API was aired, someone claimed copyright ownership in the UK, and after the GIS colleagues have looked at these APIs, they saw some similarities and decided to stop broadcasting the API. And I think it was a responsible decision that they have taken. Subsequently, regarding the question whether there has been any copyright infringement, apparently the decision at that time was not that concrete. So I think the lessons to learn is that going forward we have to require the contractor to confirm that they have not infringed any copyrights, and secondly, we have to ascertain whether or not something we see is an original creation. So in future, when we encounter any claims of copyright infringement, I think we can learn from the experience. At that time, after the API had been withdrawn, the publicity effect originally envisaged had been weakened. For any APIs and the subsequent evaluation, I'll ask the Director to respond. Whether it's the Road Safety Council or the APIs produced by our department, we will closely monitor the reaction to the APIs after it's been broadcast. However, regarding, well, I think for APIs, I think the impact would be different depending on the person. It's all a matter of subjective judgment, and we do not have any objective criteria to determine how much scores should be given to the API, how much it had helped reduce the traffic accident rates. There is no scientific approach to do this, but we do monitor it closely, and we also liaise with different stakeholders, including members of our advisory committees. For the Road Safety Council's APIs, we will look at the response from the members of the council, responses from the trade, the media, and the public to determine whether or not the API was effective. Like the Director said, so for some APIs, if they're very effective, then they will be broadcast for a long time. So whether or not the API was successful or not would depend on the response in the community. Mr. Leung Sing. When we conduct value for money evaluation, now you've spent $400,000 to produce the API and you broadcast it during the prime time, there should be a total cost figure. So if you have such a figure, would the advisory committee subsequently collect information, or do you use questionnaires for evaluation? I think when you're talking about a safety campaign, I think you should take actions to follow up on and evaluate the effectiveness. Alan Leung, I think when the Audit Commission wrote this report, they did it at two levels. First of all, from the value for money perspective, they will look at these two cases to see whether or not there is room for improvement and whether or not there have been any inadequacies. Secondly, one would need to be forward-looking. Like the Secretary said, we should learn from the experience. So I'd like to ask several questions from these two perspectives. First of all, the case 2 that you refer to, according to the report of the Audit Commission, the GIS has some guidelines regarding publicity campaigns requiring the relevant policy bureaus and departments to attend the shooting of the APIs. when the API was shot for case 2, the TD and the police were not present, would that have violated the good practice guide to publicity campaigns? Secretary. Under the circumstances, well, I asked the two directors to respond, but if you ask about the time during which the API was being shot, if the officers of the departments concerned were at the scene, then it would be desirable. But I believe that we're talking about an API. Even if someone were at the scene, their attention probably be focused on the effect of the API and the subjective reaction. I'm sure the contractor also would place the focus in this area. And regarding the minor details, so what we have now been identified is a minor defect. But I admit that the director has already admitted that they had not been sensitive enough. I think Mr. Wong already told us about. Said that in future there will be an expert on that. Director, well, as I said, Chairman, if our colleagues were present at the scene and had paid attention to this point, obviously the problem would not have arisen, and we would not have to, take off the API. In future, we will closely monitor the guideline or the practice guide. Mr. Wong, anything further? No. Mr. Cheung. Our understanding is that the controlling officer for the allocation of funds and the units responsible has a duty to do this. When we work together with different departments, I think we need to consider whether or not all the colleagues from all departments will need to be at the scene. But for the officer responsible for approving the funding and requiring them to attend, that would already satisfy the requirements of the GIS, and it has always been a principle that which the police has been abiding. Thank you. Well, my understanding is that whenever we shoot such government APIs, it is the GIS which is responsible for signing the contract, and eventually it would also be the ISD to take delivery of the final product. The ISD would obtain, will receive some assistance from the relevant departments. In the end, whether you talk about the terms of the contract and whether or not you take delivery of the product, it will be the decision of the ISD. Is that correct, Mr. Wong? I also like to make a clarification here. The ISD provides backup support where we are more familiar with production. But normally when we sign a contract, it's the relevant bureau or the departments which does that. I think in this case the contract was not signed by the ISD. It was signed by the Transport Department. Director? Or perhaps it would have been the Road Safety Council which signed that contract. Is that the case, Director? I see you nodding your head. I think if it is an API of the Road Safety Council, the contract would have been signed by the Council. But we also have an unshakable responsibility on our part. If more than one department claims that it is responsible, it would mean that eventually no one will be responsible.
I'm not trying to embarrass them, Chairman. But then the PAC its duty, is to make sure the public money is well spent. Now, of course, we're going to write a report on this case, but we would also like to see whether there can be any improvements to the system. I asked who should be held responsible, and in fact, it should be the department which has signed the contract or the agreement, but it seems that the role of the ISD is not really that clear. I don't know who can give an answer, the secretary or the ISD. But then in future, when you deal with APIs, can there be a uniform and consistent system? Because if you may think that the other party is responsible and the other department may think that you are the responsible party, and as a result, no one will take or accept the responsibility. So I want to ask one question now. I haven't read the ISD's Good Practice Guide on Publicity Campaigns. But then, of course, in para 6.6, Director of Audit has quoted from this Good Practice Guide, and it is said that the relevant departments should have attended the shooting session of the TV APIs. Now, but then on this occasion, relevant departments or bureaus did not attend the shooting session. So, who can have the final say, so to speak? I want to say that if this Good Practice Guide had been observed, case 2 would not have occurred. Now, Alan, before we get a reply from the administration, I want to clarify that we will discuss among ourselves how we're going to write the report, and I'm sure they will respond to our comments in our report. And then concerning the Good Practice Guide, can the Secretary give us a copy of this Good Practice Guide? And I'm sure this document will be helpful when we write our report. Secretary, can you now answer Mr. Leong's question? Yes, we can provide a copy of the guide to members after the meeting. I want to say that we do agree that concerning taking of responsibility and division of labor, there's room for improvement. Now, as the director has pointed out, the GIS is responsible mainly for the production, but then the ISD is not an expert in road safety, and so we can't really expect the ISD to make sure that all the requirements are met. And it's for the user department to ascertain that the requirements are met, and I think the transport department has a role to play in such cases. And according to the commissioner, it was the Road Safety Council which signed the contract. We'll have to check that after the meeting. But I think concerning the specifications for the bicycle, these should have been ascertained by the relevant section of the Transport Department. And I think this case shows that there was oversight. But of course, we understand that relevant departments do need to make sure that the specifications are met. And then concerning the effect of the API, whether the message can be brought across effectively, this is a matter of judgment and not a matter of safety or whether specifications are met. Alan. I feel rather puzzled and confused after having heard the Secretary's reply. You may feel that we are only talking about several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's not that is not a big sum, I beg your pardon. But then I think we are not clear as to where the responsibility lies. Now, for example, in case 2, now I want to say that there was the Good Practice Guide on Publicity Campaigns, and I believe there were ISD people there attending the shooting session. But then there was nobody from the police, there was nobody from the Transport Department. And as a result, the ISD colleague present at the shooting session would be regarded as someone having the say. But now we are told that, in fact, the Transport Department was the final gatekeeper. Now, there should be a system. Now, say, for example, you may say that the ISD should be responsible for coordinating contracts of APIs, and then concerning production of APIs, there is the good practice guide on publicity campaigns, and can the director of information services direct that there should be no shooting today, for example, because nobody from the relevant department is present at the shooting session. Now, no wonder why the 5,000 odd sterling pounds were not paid in case 1, because nobody knew who had the say. Nobody knew who was ultimately responsible. So who could have the say in case 1 concerning whether the 5,000 sterling pounds should be paid and the API should continue to be aired? Who could have the say? Road Safety Council, Transport Department, or GIS? Chairman, you are right in that ultimately it's for the 7 members in the PAC to decide how the report should be written. But my attitude is that at public hearings, I want to hear replies from witnesses with regard to my questions and doubts, because after today's hearing, when we write the report, they will not be present to give us assistance. Now, I don't know whether the other 6 members will agree with me, but I want to hear from the witnesses whether during the shooting sessions of TV APIs, GIS people will be present, and then I want to know who would be responsible for what, who is responsible for making sure that a good practice guide is implemented, and who the ultimate gatekeeper is. I want to know whether all these should be clearly defined and delineated so that such cases of oversight will not occur. Director, I understand that we do play a coordinating role, but can you tell us what the existing arrangements are and what you're going to do in the future? The present situation is not satisfactory. Mr. Leung is right. There is the good practice guide, and in this case, the good practice guide was not really strictly followed. But now we have ordered that if the relevant we need to implement the good practice guide fully. But I want to say that now, in fact, the relevant bureaus departments are always present at the shooting sessions. So, in fact, the problem has been resolved. Because we need to look ahead. Mr. Leung is asking you for a reply, which will help us write our report. So is it that when other departments commission you to shoot APIs and you can act on your own and they do not give any input or what? Now we do require the client departments to attend preparation meetings, and we make it compulsory for their representatives to be present at the shooting sessions. Mr. Leung, now I think this is for the record. My understanding is that the GIS is responsible for coordinating the production process or the production procedures for the APIs, and maybe you have a lot of guidelines or guides. Now, for example, FEHD is concerned about markets, AFCD is concerned about organic farming, for example. So, can the Director of Information Services give us a checklist of all your guides and guidelines? Do you have guides and guidelines for, say, different departments? And then secondly, now you need to play a coordinating role. So apart from these guides or guidelines, you should have guides or guidelines for your own staff. Now, say, for example, if certain requirements are not met, then ISD colleagues can stop the shooting, for example. So can you give us all such information after today's hearing so that we know that you've really learned a lesson from these cases and the Director of Audit's report? Yes, I understand that the Commissioner for Police can also say something concerning cooperation between the police and the ISD. Now, I'm the controlling officer for the police force, Chairman, and say if I want to produce an API for crime prevention or fighting crime, then of course we are responsible for signing the agreements or the contracts, and we will send people to vet the storyboard, the script, and we will make sure that our people are present at the shooting session, and we also will look at the rough cut, and we haven't really had problems so far. And concerning this case, first of all, I want to say that the Road Safety Council is not a legal entity as such, and so it can't really sign a contract. And under the Road Safety Council, there is the Road Safety Campaign Committee to study various road safety issues and to give recommendations to the Road Safety Council for its endorsement. And then these matters will go to the TH Bureau for funding. So that's the flow chart, so to speak. Now, I think we've never departed from the principle that if the money is paid by our department, we have to follow up. Now, concerning this case, we didn't pay for the shooting of the API, and so we didn't send anyone to the shooting session. But now we know, or we have decided that although the money doesn't come from us, so long as we have a part to play, we'll send people to the shooting session. Now, say for example, we also have Highways Department and other technical departments. In other words, there are many departments involved in the work of the Road Safety Council, and so we can't expect all the relevant departments, including the technical departments, to attend the shooting. Do you have anything further to add, Alan? Or is it? Or does Mr. Wong have anything to add? No. And Mrs. Yeung, I've got nothing to add. Alan. Now the Commission, at least, is able to tell us the flow chart in his department. Now, I'm not asking the Director of Information Services to just adopt the flow chart of the police, because you have to deal with many departments. You may need to produce many different types of APIs. But then I think you should come up with your own flow chart. You have to come up with your own set of arrangements. Now, I understand that I've overrun, but I've only got one question left. Ask your question, please. Yes, Chairman. May I refer to para 6.9? It is said that the Director of Information Services and the Commissioner of Police agree with the audit recommendations in para 6.7 and 6.8. And I want to ask a question about para 6.7. What is meant by performance-based contract payment? So can I ask the Director what you mean by that you agree with this recommendation? Yes, Director. Now, this is our understanding, Chairman. Now, we may have publicity campaigns lasting for a period of time, and we may not want to make the full payment at early stage. So we make the payment in phases. Alan. So you make the payment in phases. If the performance of the contractor is satisfactory in phase 1, then you make the phase 1 payment. Yes, that's our practice when we have publicity campaigns lasting for a period of time. And then you've also accepted the recommendation in 6.78, stepping up the review of API and other materials to be produced by contractors to identify early any possible copyright infringement issues. Will you design a flow chart? That's my recommendation in relation to case 2. Now, I understand that you do play a coordinating role. And I think you need to make departments commissioning you to coordinate the production of APIs. You have to make them understand your procedures and your practices. So will you come up with some operational guidelines for the reference of other departments? Because you're saying that you've accepted the recommendation in 6.78. Yes, Chairman. Of course, at the moment we already have the good practice guide, and in the light of recommendations of the Director of Audit and members, we will further enhance our work in this regard. Yes, Kenneth. Chairman, thank you. I just want to know whether members have any further questions on part 6. I have 2 more questions on part 6, and then I think we can conclude part 6. Now, I want to ask questions about publicity on bicycle safety fittings. May I refer to para 6.17? Both the Commissioner of Police and the Commissioner for Transport agree that publicity should be stepped up at shops from which the general public buy or rent their bicycles. So again, we have 2 departments which are responsible for the work. So who will play the leading role? The Commissioner for Police or the Commissioner for Transport? And then second, I would like to ask the Commissioner for Police and the Commissioner for Transport whether they've got any concrete measures in this regard. I mean 6.17. And then 6.10, para 6.10. I think, Kenneth, we should let them answer the first 2 questions first in relation to 6.17. So who can answer this question, Secretary or the 2 commissioners? Yes, I think I'll invite the 2 commissioners to reply. Commissioner for Police? Yes, thank you. Concerning cycling safety, we've seen an increase in the number of cycling-related accidents, and that's why some safety guidelines have been drawn up. In fact, in some road safety campaigns, we distributed bells to the attendants. As you're aware, it's mandatory to have a bell and a rear reflector on a bicycle, and the Road Safety Council has also endorsed the production of some posters. Now this poster will be launched very soon, and we will publicize the following messages: the need for a bell and a rear reflector to be installed, and also a white front light and a red rear light. And although this is not in the law, we do advise cyclists to wear helmets and other safety gear. So we do pay attention to cycling safety. And then Division of Labor. We hope that the Transport Department will continue to target the transport sector, and the police will continue to target the general public.
Well, there's also an industry concern, the rent and sale of bicycles, and later on we will liaise with TD on the Division of Labor. Thank you. TD, I have nothing to add. The police chief had already responded, and he is correct. When we promote APIs on the safe use of bicycles and the use of bicycles on roads, we do focus on how we do cooperate with other departments and relevant APIs. In the future, we also have cooperation with the police regarding the rent of bicycles and how we should conduct APIs. So the industry part is your responsibility. Anything to add? Yes, I have a follow-up question. In recent years, bicycle accidents have been increasing. We have serious fatalities and even deaths where cyclists have not been wearing a helmet and they were cycling downhills and hit a hard object. Just now, the police chief says there's no helmet requirements, and we have accidents arising. So I'd like to ask the TD, do we have any policy inclination to legislate the use of helmets for when cycling? Chairman, I recall in an oral questioning in the Legislative Council meeting, there was a similar question, and my response was, we see in overseas jurisdictions, there is not necessarily a mandatory helmet requirement. So even if it's mandatory, education should come first. My response at the time was, we do need to examine what is the best course of action, but I agree. In recent years, accidents and fatalities have been increasing. And if we wish to promote a bicycle-friendly environment in new towns, we also need to work on safety. So that's why up till now, in the urban downtown areas, we do not encourage using bicycles as a transport tool. Well, Mr. Leung's question was, are you inclined to legislate the use of helmets? We are not considering that because, well, in your Legco Council response, what are you considering? I had said we are not considering legislation because overseas jurisdictions have not legislated. Mr. Leung? So you're not legislating. There are some jurisdictions not legislating. Well, I don't wish to struggle over this question, but I suggest that if you are to legislate, then there should be use of helmets in certain areas. I think that should be a healthy development. And Chairman, that would conclude my questions on part 6. If we don't have questions, let's move on to part 2. Any questions on part 6? Well, you agreed that you would provide supplemental information on the coordination of APIs. And please submit that as soon as possible. This should be very easy. Well, if the departments can't help, then you shouldn't coordinate them on the promotion of APIs. So when we draft our report, we can include our views. Yes. Besides looking forward, we also need to consider value for money, such that our public funds are spent effectively. So please submit the required information as soon as possible. let's move on to part 2. And let me start part 2, measures to tackle drink driving. The majority of my questions are law enforcement related. The first question is for the police chief. You can refer to paragraph 2.9. It says that the majority of drink driving accidents occur between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. and 76% occurred between 6:01 p.m. and 6 a.m. and 42% of random breath tests were conducted during daytime. So my first question is for the police chief or his colleagues: how do you determine when to conduct random breath tests? And second, the police have fixed roadblocks where they conduct breath checks, but it's too rigid. So a lot of drivers know to avoid those locations. So I'd like to ask, how do you determine the locations and time of these breath tests? Police, you can respond to paragraph 2.9. Well, the first question about random breath tests, when the law was introduced, we had pledged to maintain a random time and random location tests. Well, the location, consideration is we have to choose a safe location. If there have been traffic violations, we can also conduct breath tests if necessary. Well, the location is predictable. If you visit, for example, like Wai-hung, there's only a few access points out of Central, and these are physical restrictions. Second, why do we conduct breath tests during the day? Because the consequences of drink driving are very serious. So if you're drunk during the day, you are a menace to yourself and other road users. You might recall a mainland lorry driver had rammed into a taxi and leading to 4 deaths in the taxi. So in order to have the law effective, we need to have random time and location tests. Of course, when you consider value for money, well, there should be more drunk driving during the night, so shouldn't we have more drunk driving tests at night? But if you look at law enforcement, I have 2 sets of figures for your consideration. In attending similar meetings in LegCo, we would like to have 60% of testing at night. In our operations, number of operations design, we want more inspections at night, but it's not necessarily equal to the number of random breath tests. But you have to understand the traffic flow is different during day and night. If you conduct 1 hour of testing during the day, it's definitely more than 1 hour testing at night. So that's why you see 60% of the tests are conducted at night, because 60% are at night. That is a realistic restriction. So you have to understand our concern. Regardless of time, you shouldn't drink and drive. In fact, we almost have the most stringent drink driving tests in Hong Kong. Our breath test threshold is 22 milligrams. Even if you consume a little bit of alcohol, it's very easy to trigger the 22 milligram restriction. We agree with the Audit Commission. We need to use better, we have to have better use of resources. Can we conduct more tests at night? Yes, that's something we'll consider. I will accept that explanation. Moving on to another operation question. In paragraphs 2.14a, my understanding is the police cannot record the time and location of the breath tests. That is the result identified by the Audit Commission. The police say it's because the IT system in the past could not accommodate that, but this data is very important. What time and location you've conducted a test is very important in designing future operations. So I'd like to know what improvements have the police made to the IT system. It's just a resource issue that hinder you from recording this data. Well, this has a relevant part. The breath test is a 3-part process. It has to be random. After you breathe into the machine, you either trigger or you don't trigger the machine. If you trigger the machine, we do a breath analyzer. You have to exceed 22 milligrams of alcohol. So the data we collect is the Part 2 test results. Our system, if it were to record all this data, so besides a human resource input, you also need to expand the system. I'm aware that the Audit Commission had raised this issue. We'll see whether we can upgrade our system as well. So, police chief, you have very comprehensive data, but with mobile testing, you're saying that it's too much data, and the driver might not trigger the machine on all occasions, and you need to have an arrangement to capture all the data. Well, if they don't trigger the machine, that means there's no drink driving, so that you don't record the information. But we do have the number of tests information, so you can count the number of times that the machine was triggered, and you can calculate the trigger rate. You can do the number of cases where it was not triggered. It's a simple arithmetic question. So you can collect information on where it was not triggered, but we're trying to record where the breath test was triggered. We focus on the trigger cases. The Audit Commission wants us to record the non-trigger events as well, of course. But the police are a law enforcement agency. We focus on trigger events. But if you want to consider value for money, then you should also consider the non-trigger cases. But from law enforcement perspective, on each operation, there is a reporting. If we see a lot of non-trigger events during a certain location at a certain time, well, our staff are aware. So we want our staff to also conduct analysis besides relying too much on the computer. Director of Audit, could you respond to the police chief's response? We want to look at value for money. We don't want a hospital to have a lot of deaths for it to be successful. And it does have a deterrent effect, and there is value for money. So could you explain why you had that recommendation? Yes. In our recommendation, we respect the police law enforcement efficacies, and from the audit perspective, we look at value for money. So besides law enforcement, we look at prosecution cases, we look at the resources spent and the efficacy of the efforts. And in this operation, there is room for collecting more data. The police management can work with the data collected to assess the deployment of resources, whether it is most efficient. So therefore, we see there is room for improvement. From the value for money perspective, if we have to have roadblocks, do you also consider the deterrent effect? It stops people from consuming alcohol or consuming as much. Have you included the deterrent effect for in making this recommendation? Yes, of course we do. When we audit this item, we do have a very detailed discussion with police. Of course, we understand there is a deterrent effect. On the other hand, we need to balance the inconvenience to the public. As the police chief said, there's heavy traffic during the day. If you stop a lot of vehicles to conduct tests, it leads to traffic congestion and inconvenience. So we need to balance these different factors, and we see the police can consider their operations balance between the day and night. Okay, Kenneth?
Chairman, I don't have any further questions for the time being. I'd like to defer to other colleagues. From the deterrent perspective, if you only deploy a policeman on the street, and when the media reported on the case involving Mr. Poi-yan, I don't think nobody would not be aware of the danger of drink driving. So I don't think from this may be worth doing it from the police perspective, but that is irrelevant. We were focusing on the question of when people will be caught and how wide is your net, and do people, can people slip through the net? Now, if I may spend some time since 2009 we started the random breath test, and after 2012 we had starting from December, we had a 3-tier penalty system in place, and the commissioner already explained to us that if you exceed the threshold of 22 milligram, you will you would have exceeded the threshold, and then there are 3 tiers of non-compliance. Starting from 22 milligram will be caught. Is 2.15. Thank you, Chairman. In paragraph 2.15, and then there will be the second and third tier, and the penalties are 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. The drivers are most concerned about the suspension of the driving license on top of the fines. Looking at the record, I think we can see that according to when the police deal with these cases, the timing between the random breath test to the time the person is taken to police station for evidential breath test, it took 70 minutes in 98, it became 60 minutes in 05, and 2212 it was 44 minutes for the police to complete the whole case. But if one looks at the latest information from the audit department, since different ways have been used, and because of the delay in conducting such tests, 24% of the cases, for 24% of the cases, because of the delay, the alcohol level in the person in the driver's body would have lowered, and as a result, the police could not prosecute. For 29%, because the alcohol concentration has been reduced because of the delay, and as a result, they will only be charged for a lighter, less serious offense. And there have been many such cases, resulting in the fact that the effectiveness of the enforcement has been weakened. So I'd like to ask the Bureau and the Police Commissioner this question. That is, we've undertaken these tests for so long already. Why is it that every year we still have such serious delays? Commissioner, I think Mr. Chair's question refers to para 2.15 to 19. Let me first answer the question regarding the evidential breath test and how we can improve by reducing the the time interval from 7 minutes to 50 and 40 minutes. Right now, we do not have such equipment in every police station. So other than the delay caused by having to take the suspect to the police station, very often the problem lies with those who are arrested. If the arrested person doesn't know Chinese or English, we need to arrange for an interpreter, and we can only conduct the test after the interpreter has arrived. Or if the arrested person, after being arrested, would ask for to see his lawyer, and we'll have to make that arrangement before we can conduct the test. These are some of the reasons for the delay. In order to resolve this problem, the police plans to adopt 2 measures. First of all, we hope that where circumstances allow, we will install such evidential test equipment in every police station so that the test could be done at the nearest police station. And secondly, we will consider experimenting with the use of mobile testing equipment. In the paper, we've already indicated that the consultant will give us a report in this regard towards the end of the year. Even if the consultant thinks that it's feasible, we have to consider whether the court will accept such a second stage evidence. So we will do this. If I may also add that the maintenance of the equipment. In the audit report, it has been reported that some of the equipments are broken down and the arrested person have to be taken to another police station. Regarding the breakdown of the equipment, for each piece of equipment, I mean, we would have records of, and looking at the past 15 months, the overall breakdown rate is about 1%. So our equipments have been quite well maintained. I believe that if we, by acquiring new equipment and better maintenance, and if we could successfully introduce mobile testing equipment, that could certainly shorten the time for required to take the evidential breath test. I understand members' concern, and that is only right, because when the human body has, when someone has, drunk alcohol, the body will start to, discharge the alcohol, and the alcohol content will drop with time, and that's why we have tried our best to shorten the time between the random test and the evidential test. Chairman, I'd like to ask the Commissioner roughly how much does the equipment cost, the equipments at the police station. The latest, for the latest equipment, the price has gone down. It's now about $100,000 per unit. I understand that of the 42 police stations, in only 18 of the police stations, or 43% of the police stations, have not been equipped with the relevant equipments. So considering the price, does it mean that we can't afford the price, so that the police station, not all the police stations can be equipped with the equipments? Thank you. I think this is the same question that I'd like to ask myself. Before we have any new equipment, the old equipment have to be, operated by using gas. We need an independent room within the police station to place this equipment, and that might not be possible in all the police stations. I mean, if we cannot conduct a test in one police station, we've recently, set up some testing centers. As the Audit Commission report said, this will make up for the long distance. Recently, we now have new equipments which are entirely digital, and with the arrival of the new equipments, we don't need a separate room to store the equipment. Then I think we would be able to carry out such tests in each and every station. So when we get the resources available, we'll ensure that the new equipment will be set up in all the police stations, and we will not just discard the old equipment. We'll wait until they have they break down. Regarding the mobile testing equipment, I think in the UK they've started using this for a long time already. Why has it taken Hong Kong so long? In 2.21, we know that you bought two equipments, and but apparently you're still conducting the tests now. Why has it taken so long? Why haven't you been able to use these mobile equipment earlier? So in order to, well, I understand that in Australia they are using such mobile devices. After we bought the equipment, we had conducted a pilot test, but given the climate environment in Hong Kong, the suppliers had set the equipment several times for the test, that they turned out to be unsuccessful. We've also worked with the universities. We've invited one university which has worked with us before to help us conduct the test. The university haven't looked at all the data, said that they couldn't do it. And eventually, this time, we are now collaborating with the University of Science and Technology. Well, we still don't know what the outcome of the test will be, given the climatic conditions in Hong Kong. Because when the evidence is submitted to court and we need to take legal action, the evidential test is being done at a fixed location or premises. So because the equipment is installed by the contractor will certify during periodic maintenance that the equipment will be accepted by the court. But in future, if the mobile devices are set up on a vehicle and the vehicle goes to different parts of the territory, there will be many unknown variables. So other than the technical test, we have to ensure whether or not the evidence collected will be admitted in court. Well, Chairman, In Australia, they have a serious problem of drink driving, and of course they are very concerned. And in terms of operations, the equipment they use and the actions they take, they are ahead of Hong Kong. According to the audit report, apparently in the UK they also use similar equipment, although you told us that only in Australia they are using it. Whether it's the UK or Australia, I don't think we can reinvent the wheel, since other people already been using the equipment, and we can learn from the experience. And I'm sure the U.S. Legal system will not be inferior to ours, Director or Secretary. I said that the major issue now is the weather conditions, especially in summer when it's very hot and humid. So we need to conduct detailed tests, and the climatic conditions in Hong Kong is not the same as that in Australia. I don't have the information on hand. Well, we bought some new equipment earlier, and if the suppliers could not set these machines, is that because of our climatic conditions, or is it due to other reasons? Through the consultancy report, we will be able to answer all those questions. Thank you, Chairman. I have no further questions for the time being. Mr. Leung, you may ask a question, after which we can take a break. I'd like to follow up on the three-tier penalty system. That would be para 2.15, right? Well, according to the system, there will be penalties in terms, for example, license suspension. So we have a system, and we heard just now that the system has been effective. The question is whether or not we have a guarantee to ensure that during that relevant period of time, we can prove or ascertain that the person, we can prove that the alcohol level has not gone down because of any delay, so that the penalty will be set according to a lower tier. I understand that according to medical experts or reports, alcohol is absorbed into the stomach, and because of metabolism, the alcohol content will decline with time, and the data may not be accurate. So my question is this: have you followed up on such overseas studies, and have you obtained such data? Or even in Hong Kong, you can do that, because the physical conditions of different people may vary. But perhaps you can conduct a general test, to find out after which time and by how much the alcohol content will drop. In 2.18, you say that the average time is 15 to 90 minutes. The average is 44 minutes. Have you conducted a test once every 15 minutes? You may not be able to arrest the culprit, but have you used human subjects for the test to find out by how much the alcohol content will drop every 15 minutes? Well, so with evidence, with all this evidence available, you can set the parameters. That is, every time there is a 15-minute delay, you will add a number of milligrams on top. Otherwise, according to para 2.22 arrest procedures, there is a possibility that this may give rise to corruption, because the test procedure is delayed, and eventually the penalty level would be different. So my question is whether you have considered, coming up with more scientific parameters so that we can more fairly and reasonably ascertain the level. That is, in terms of the procedure, there's a lot of flexibility, and any injustice caused resulting in the 20-odd%, which is not accurate. Of the 744 cases, 24% of the arrested person actually had their sentence reduced to Tier 1. So I'd like to ask whether or not you have any plans to enhance the three-tier penalty system. Director. Commissioner. Mr. Ng's question relates to, data relating to the human body. When you have a serious traffic accident involving drink driving, it is true that we will adopt this method. It's not that we would use a table and simply apply additions and deductions. Normally, we'll have people from the government laboratory who will provide the expert witness to work out, first of all, whether or not the person has drunk alcohol, absorbed alcohol, and then whether we do a blood test or a breath test. We would take into consideration the time gap and adjust it accordingly. Well, this would apply. It is done for individual cases and cases involving serious accidents, and the evidence would need to be verified in court. There's been lots of overseas studies on this area, and there are several which you can make reference. First of all, the different people, the human body, the different people's ability to discharge alcohol from the body vary from person to person. It also varies with the gender, the physique, and the ethnicity of the subject. So adopting a simple method of addition and deduction to make adjustments for the to compensate for the delay, I'm sure the court will not accept that. However, I talk about certain cases where people deliberately try to cause delay. If the person can't speak Cantonese, we have to arrange for an interpreter. We can't say he's deliberately stalling, and if he insists to see a lawyer, we can't say that he is deliberately trying to delay the test. But if there is evidence to prove that the person is indeed deliberately delaying the test, then we will consider whether we would have to invite expert witness from the government lab to provide expert evidence. He will need to recalculate the figures again, and the expert witness will then testify as to what should have been the actual level of alcohol content in the blood. Chairman, you want the 3T system to work, then, well, you talk about specific cases, and I don't think that will have any deterrent effect. So I can only suggest that you should follow up on this further. In the final analysis, we're talking about whether it's reasonable. If the arrested person have ways to delay the test, and only for specific cases you can ask for the assistance of an expert witness. But in general, if you know that you say, let's say, if you can add the number, increase the figure according to the time of the delay, that would be the long-term solution rather than simply relying on individual cases. I hope the Commissioner will consider whether this is possible. And I also like to refer to 2.26C. That is streamlining the arrest procedure. In your response to the Audit Commission, you've already made a response. Regarding the streamlined arrest procedures, could you give us more details? I'd like to make two responses. That is to prevent people from causing deliberate delay so that the alcohol level would drop. I think if the test on the mobile devices works, then it will help. But it doesn't. Secondly, in 2.26C, when we received the recommendation from the Audit Commission, we're considering whether or not financially this is feasible, whether or not we have the space within our police stations. The study has never stopped. After we responded to the Audit Commission, we have been following on this, and our management recently had also discussed this matter. That is, if we could make some internal savings, we will deploy internal resources to acquire additional equipment so that we can do it at each and every police station. In that case, we wouldn't need to streamline the procedure. The procedure now is that anybody who is arrested on the road, the arresting officer will have to take the person to the nearest police station and report the case, the rest to the duty officer before triggering the other procedures. If in one police station, if the nearest police station doesn't have the equipment, then the arrest procedure will be put on record, and the arrested person will be taken to the next nearest station for the test. And I admit that this is not satisfactory. But right now, the new equipment doesn't require them to be deployed in a separate room.
And we hope that we can do it with using our existing resources in the coming year. Mr. Ng Leung say, I hope that the improvements can be made in the next few months. Mr. Alan Leung, yes, I think we can conclude part 2 after I have asked a few simple questions. Now, I understand that the CP wants to use the human brain to override the computers, the artificial brains, so to speak. But then, computers have much greater power and capacity, and then the human brain, of course, can think. That's the difference. Now, may I refer to para 2.14? It is said that the police will explore to include the dates, times, and locations of the random breath test operations in a new communal information system, so that pattern and record data could easily be retrieved for strategic planning of operations as well as for analysis purposes. So can I ask the CP when this is going to happen? 2.14a. Commissioner. Yes, thank you, Chairman. We hope that the study can be completed within this financial year. And then if it is found to be feasible, then we'll try to find the necessary money to implement this measure. And the second question relates to the 3-tier penalty. We understand that the alcohol level decreases with time, and as a result there will be dropout cases if there is a very big time gap between the two tests. But I understand you may not be able to purchase all the mobile evidential breath test devices you need and install them on the patrol vehicles. It takes time. Now, I think there is a scientific dimension or perspective, and then there is also the dimension of providing evidence to support criminal prosecution. So have you talked to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions in the DOJ? And then concerning the evidential burden, the burden of proof, the standard of proof, have you had a discussion with the universities, with the academics? And if the answer is yes, can you tell us the progress? And can you tell us the greatest difficulty that you've found having consulted the academics, the universities, and the DOJ, so that for drivers who should get PS3 penalty or punishment, they will not be able to be let off the hook. CP, now we haven't had discussions with these units first. At the moment, we are still enforcing the existing provisions in the law. But now having read this report, this Director of Audit's report, will you plan to do that? And when we write the report, how should we represent your position? Should we say you will just stick to the status quo and you are not intending to move ahead any further, because that was not the impression I got when you gave evidence. My impression was that you wanted to seek continuous improvement and you wanted to narrow the time gap between the tests, so that for those who commit drink driving, they won't be able to get off easily or get away easily. So have you discussed the standard of evidence or standard of proof with the academics responsible for the scientific dimension? So can you synchronize the two dimensions, the scientific dimension and the standard of evidence dimension? Because we want to know your position, because your position will be reflected in our report. Commissioner, thank you. Now, in fact, as Mr. Leung has pointed out, the police want to make continuous improvements. So concerning the management of information, we've already agreed that we will pursue that course of action. And then the mobile evidential breath test, if we can resolve the technical problems, that would help to shorten the time gap. And then so we're looking at various ways to try to narrow the time gap. And then Mr. Ng asked whether we could use the averaging method. I understand that this practice cannot be found in other places or other countries. And then as to how we can better implement the 3-tier system, now we are open-minded. We will, of course, consult our own law enforcing officers, and we'll also be consulting experts as to what we can do. And so we'll start with a consultation process. Yes, Chairman, thank you. I do appreciate the CP's need to adopt a prudent approach. But then in future, when you start criminal prosecution in court, and those who help you will be the legal experts, the DOJ, and can you bring together the DOJ and the scientific experts? Now, for example, Hong Kong is humid, and then when the device is installed on a vehicle, then the manufacturer may not be able to issue a certificate, and so on and so forth. So these are difficulties in providing evidence for criminal prosecution. So I just want to know whether you can talk to the Director of Public Prosecution's office, and can you bring the people in that office together with the scientific experts to see whether under the present state of technological development, we are in a position to introduce more mobile evidential breath test devices into Hong Kong. So that's my point. Maybe I didn't really make myself too clear. Perhaps I put forward my arguments too clumsily. Chairman, I think let's see what our conclusions should be. But because I thought he didn't really give me an answer. I think to be fair to him, there are resource implications for implementing these recommendations. Now, he has to consider the resource implications, the manpower implications. I think we need to give him some time. Perhaps we can try to deal with this point in the recommendations part of our report. I just want to give the CP a chance to state his position. Maybe he wants to tell us that these things are just not feasible. Don't be naive. So and when we write the report, we'll not be able to have the benefit of the CP's replies or advice. Now, CP, now I want to say that I've never intended to avoid members or avoid answering members' questions. We're willing to consider all measures that can enhance road safety. Mr. Leung saying the last question before the break. Mr. Chairman, just now the CP said something about the breakdown rate of the devices, and I believe he mentioned 1%, right? Can I confirm 1 point? 2.20 para B, 7 cases, 18%. The drink driving suspects were taken to police stations with the devices, but then because of the breakdowns of the test devices, additional traveling time was incurred, blah, blah, blah. That's 2.220 B. So we see the figure 18% here. But then just now the CP said the breakdown rate of the devices was only 1%. Why is there this discrepancy? CP, as far as I understand, the 18% represents the cases sampled by the Director of Audit. But then when I mentioned 1%, I was talking about the operation of the devices, and I do have these records. January 2012 to March this year, 15 months. On the average each month, we had for 9 days for repair. So after we've done the calculations, we've come up with the figure of 1%, because sometimes if you do not use the devices, you can't detect the breakdown. Now, or rather, in fact, all the devices work very well, but then when we carry out an evidential breath test, the device breaks down, then that would be downtime. But then the overall breakdown rate is only 1%. So we're talking about a very high reliability rate. As to whether we should expedite the replacement of existing evidential breath test devices, we need, in fact, we have consulted the suppliers and they've confirmed that these devices do operate well at the moment. Mr. Leung saying, I just feel that concerning the I'm just saying that the CP mentioned 1%, but then in the 7 cases in the report, it so happened that it was 80%, 7 cases, and I hope that there will not be delays caused by breakdown of devices, because if there are delays, then there will be dropout cases. All right, I think we can leave the matter at that. Mr. Kenneth Leung, yes, some quick questions. Chairman, can the CP look at para 2.26b? 2.26b, these devices are checked and calibrated by the contractor every 3 months. And Mr. Leung saying, asked a question about the breakdown of the devices. Is it enough or adequate to have a check and a calibration exercise once every 3 months? And who decided that it should be 3 months? Or is it that the contractor says that it can only do so once every 3 months? And if we can have more frequent checks and calibrations, then will the downtime be reduced? Thank you. Chairman, thank you. In fact, I think every 3 months or 3 months intervals is quite frequent. And then when we look at whether we should increase the frequency, we don't just look at the cost implications or the terms of the contract. We look at the breakdown rate. If the breakdown rate keeps increasing, if the situation deteriorates, then of course we should have more frequent checks and calibrations. But as I've told the PAC just now, in the past 15 months, the breakdown rate was only 1%. And so there are not good reasons to increase the frequency of checks and calibrations, because we need to abide by the principle of prudent financial management. All right, so we'll have a 10-minute break. We'll come back after 10 minutes, and then we will move on to parts 3, 4, and 5. Thank you.
Ken 話我哋應該12點嚟。